Right, enough messing around. This is YouTube, and what we want is a big list of wrestling matches, you know? I'm Jack the Jobber, and I thought... I'm Jack the Jobber, and I thought it would be nice to just list what I thought was the greatest wrestling match of each year, dating all the way back to 1985. 85 felt like a bit of an appropriate place, 40 years ago, and the start of mainstream wrestling, you could argue. WrestleMania 1 happened in 85, so let's just crack on with it. And also, this is obviously all just my opinion. Everything is subjective. I doubt there'll be a single person out there who will have exactly the same combination of matches as mine right here. But just leave yours, or leave any big recommendations you might think I've missed in the comment section down below, and we can all watch each other's recommendations. It'll be fun. Right, let's kick things off then with 1985. I won't do that for every year, I promise. Now, the big notable kind of grand, epic, gritty match in 85 is Magnum TA versus Tully Blanchard in the cage, the old NWA match. I'm a wrestling hipster, and there was one that pipped it for me. We're going to take a trip to the land of Joshi wrestling, or Japanese women's wrestling, of course. And at the time, in the mid-80s, it was kind of leagues ahead of everything else around. Or leagues ahead of its time, at least, anyway. And in my mind, no match typifies that more than, in All Japan Women's Wrestling, Jaguar Yokota versus Lioness Asuka in the Nippon Budokan, an iconic venue, for an iconic match. Now, I've seen online, when I delved into kind of hipster territory, I've seen the match before this one actually kind of gains more attention these days, with ultra babyface Chigusa Nagayo lighting up the undercard, but I prefer the main event. And that sees Nagayo's tag partner, Lioness Asuka, take on a very proud, very dominant champion in the form of Jaguar Yokota. It is a fantastic, ultra-competitive, dangerous at times main event. It doesn't seem like it's from 1985 at all, and it features maybe the single most terrifying running, jumping pile driver I've ever seen. Everyone involved in both this match and the one before it on the card is now an absolute Joshi legend, and I highly recommend checking it out if you've not seen it, and if you can find it. 1986, it features a classic steel cage match between Ric Flair and Ricky Morton. It also features Tatsumi Fujinami versus Akira Maeda in New Japan, very shoot style, kicks. I've gone for a different one. I've opted for Ric Flair versus Barry Windham at NWA Battle of the Belts 2 in Orlando, Florida. It's this brawny, easy to cheer for babyface against the classic Ric Flair, Weasley heel champion. He's at the peak of his powers around this time, and it's just executed really, really well. If you don't like double count out finishes, maybe avoid this one and pick another 1986 match of your own. But I think that the finish, although controversial, works really well. It's the classic NWA Southern style booking model, the disgraceful, despicable heel champion squeaking out of there with the belt intact, but without the moral victory. As I say, Flair is either in or at least approaching his absolute prime at this point, and Barry Windham is in fantastic babyface form as well. 1987, I almost went for the same match again, another Flair versus Windham match, this time a 45-minute time limit draw, which you could argue is better than the one I picked for 86, but I think there was a better match in 87. And sadly, for my wrestling hipster credentials, it's a very famous match as well. I couldn't not go for it. Ricky Steamboat versus Randy Savage at WrestleMania 3 for the IC title. It's such an efficiently put together match, wrestled at a crazy, frantic pace for its time, especially in the slightly slower paced, sports entertainment heavy WWF. And it's an absolute triumph, especially for, in my opinion, Randy Savage, who is my favourite wrestler of the golden era of WWE. So I am very biased. And this match changed the game, really. I'm not one of those people who hates on the main event between Hogan and Andre. I think that was a perfectly delivered match for what it was attempting to do. It carried out its mission successfully. But so did this one in a very different way. And just as a match in itself, this one's leagues ahead of anything else on the card. But it also gets a little bit sports entertaining as well towards the end, with a finish that is a little bit less clean than I think people may remember, although it doesn't take away from Steamboat's babyface performance. He's simply evening the odds with the help of George the Animal Steele. And the main story of the match isn't just its finish, it's the whole package. It's the speed, the frantic nature, as I've said. It's regarded as the first truly great WrestleMania match for a reason. 1988, I thought initially I was going to pick Stan Hansen and Terry Gordy's big heel victory over Tenryu and a young Kawada in All Japan, but I did not. Instead, I brushed up on some old school Southern tag team wrestling, and that's why I've opted for, in the NWA, the Midnight Express versus the Fantastics in Virginia. Might be a bit confusing because there's possibly a more famous match they had later on in the year, but this is the first one which wasn't for the title but proved that the Fantastics deserved that eventual title shot. It's perhaps a little bit more easy to digest than the more famous one. It's slightly shorter, and the Fantastics have just such good babyface charisma. It's classic tag team stuff, hot tags, cutting the ring in half, all that sort of stuff. The heels, very unscrupulous. Of course, they have Jim Cornette in their corner. It's everything you want for a tag team match of this era. I mean, the Midnights are the classic heel tag team for a reason, and it's on full display here. It's a very selfless performance from the heels as well. They put the Fantastics over huge, and the Fantastics take that ball and run with it. And you need to listen to the crowd reaction in this one as well. It's unbelievable. 1989, maybe the first truly stacked year we've had so far. I could have gone for Liger versus Sano over in New Japan. I almost went for Ric Flair versus Terry Funk. But instead, I had to turn my attention towards the famous trilogy, of course, between Flair and Ricky Steamboat. It's a weird trilogy because there's actually 4 matches in it. So the first one is the one where Steamboat wins. He overcomes this dirty heel and he wins the belt. It's a big triumphant moment. Quite a simple story though. The second one is fan cam footage. Allegedly, it's the best one of the 4 if you're one of the lucky few to have seen it or even been there live. The third one is the 2 out of 3 falls match, and the fourth one is where Flair wins the belt back and then gets battered by Terry Funk afterwards and Flair turns face. And my favourite of these is the simplest one. It's the first one at the Chi-Town Rumble where Ricky Steamboat just wins and it's a big happy moment. The overall story may be simple, but the match itself is not. It is absolutely fantastically done. Doesn't go too long as you could maybe accuse some of the other matches of doing. I think it's about 25 minutes and it's the ultimate face versus heel dynamic. Again, like the tag match I just talked about before, it's also a classic story of a skilled babyface overcoming a certainly intelligent and devious heel, but one who just doesn't have the heart of the dragon. 1990 could have gone for Jumbo Tsuruta's torch-passing loss in All Japan to Mitsuharu Misawa, a very important match in the history of that promotion and in wrestling as a whole. I could also have gone for some of the epic Kings Road tag matches we were seeing in All Japan at the time as well. Instead, I have turned my attention to New Japan for the first time, no image, sorry. And it's a matchup that I turned down in '89, but now I'm going for it in 1990. Jushin Thunder Liger taking on Naoki Sano. And I know what you might be thinking if you've never seen this match. Oh, Jushin Thunder Liger, cartoonish, happy, heroic babyface. This is going to be high-flying action. It's going to be one for the children. Oh, it's not. This is all about hatred, you guys. Pile drivers early on in the match as well. Tearing at Liger's mask is Sano at one point. And then Liger makes, I think, one of the all-time babyface comebacks. Certainly of this era, anyway. You can watch this match not knowing a thing about the rivalry between Sano and Liger. You can watch this match, as I did, not speaking a word of Japanese, not understanding what the commentary team are trying to say, and still you can come away getting a full picture of the story. I think that speaks to just how good this match is. 1991, again some honorable mentions. Kaiji Muto versus Big Van Vader in the G1 Climax. Kenta Kobashi versus Stan Hansen in All Japan, very good as well. And another epic 6-man tag in All Japan 2, walking that King's Road for, I believe, about an hour. I didn't go for it though. My actual pick though, and once again my hipster credentials are taking a battering, although I did pick that Joshi match in 1985, so I'm still a hipster, you guys. I'm going for SummerSlam 91, Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect. It's the first Bret Hart match of this video, and it's certainly not the last, which won't surprise you, certainly if you, like me, are also a fan of the Hitman. He is one of the greatest of all time. Bret is so slick in this one, and Mr. Perfect is a very wonderful counterpart as well, really helping Bret kind of nudge him along in his journey up the card. I'm not saying that Bret was a made man because of this match, or that he would never have reached those heights if it had never happened, but it definitely added to his legacy. Special credit must also be given to Curt Hennig for wrestling this match with a legitimate back injury and somehow not even missing a step. I'm flabbergasted, as you can tell. It has the big iconic closing stretch as well, with Bret somehow surviving the perfect plex and then transitioning into that final sharpshooter But I think the match is more than just its finishing stretch. It's a masterpiece all around. A plethora of great matches to choose from in 1992, especially from All Japan again and All Japan Women's Wrestling, including the ascendance of the legendary Minami Toyota. I almost went, in fact, for Kobashi and Kikuchi's performance against Furnace and LaFawn in All Japan, but once again I've gone for a more famous one. Bret Hart versus the British Bulldog at SummerSlam 92 in Wembley Stadium. Could it realistically have been anything else? Just a reminder, I am British. And alright, I have to admit, the last time I rewatched this match, I watched it with the purpose of trying to work out if the criticism everybody says is true, and if it is indeed a carry job from Bret Hart, an absolute carry job, helping British Bulldog, somehow dragging him to this all-time classic. And I have to be brutally honest here, I think it kind of is, but I don't think that takes away from what a great match it is. I don't think it disqualifies it from being talked about in such a way. The famous finish as well is brilliantly conceived, which I think Bret gave himself credit for in this very autobiography, and it's one of the all-time greatest crowd reactions in the history of WWE. Again, in my very biased opinion, as a Brit. Pip, pip, pip. That's what we say. 1993, I think it's fair to say, is all about Japan, Hansen versus Kawada, Kobashi versus Kawada, the interpromotional feud between All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling and JWP too. And I have indeed gone for one of those epic All Japan matches, a Stan Hansen match. Not the one against Kawada though, but the one against Kenta Kobashi. This took place in the summer of 93 in the Nippon Budokan, and it is an absolute war. A lot of Japanese wrestling history is built on the age-old tale of the home nation, the Japanese hero, taking on the foreign heel, and this is one of the best examples I think I've ever seen. It's also, as you'd imagine, given the people involved, an utterly punishing contest. Some of the strikes in this match, given and in fairness received, especially by Kenta Kobashi, are wince-inducing, and it's a really full-blooded effort by both men. I'm not even going to say who wins this one, because I do definitely urge you to seek it out and listen to just how the crowd gets behind Kenta Kobashi as well. 1994 is stacked as well, although slightly more across the globe this time. Bret versus Owen, of course, often considered to be one of the greatest WrestleMania opening matches of all time. Shawn versus Razor, the groundbreaking ladder match for the IC title at the very same event too. But I've gone for a match so famous among kind of old school tape traders and generally internet smarks that it's known in shorthand by the date in which it took place. I'm talking about Misawa versus Kawada, their famous clash on July 3rd, 1994, again in the Nippon Budokan. The match is epic. It tells this really epic tale of Kawada, who I guess is the underdog because Misawa is the leader of this generation. But we are never allowed to forget the fact that Kawada has all the tools necessary to really dismantle Misawa if he can just do it. He's very dangerous and certainly more of a sadistic and I think you could argue a more skilled fighter in this storyline than Misawa is. Certainly in those strike exchanges, definitely. But Misawa has the heart of a lion and you could argue is the better wrestler as well. It's a really nice clash of styles between two men who already at this point had an absolute boatload of history between them. There is also an emphatic and terrifying finish with Misawa nailing the Tiger Driver 91 and dropping Kawada pretty much on his head. So that's, yeah, it's hard to watch. 1995, once again, is another year of Japan. The Observers match of the year, for example, was an hour-long time limit draw between Minami Toyota and Kyoko Inoue. We also saw Aja Kong's crushing defeat of Minami Toyota and Minami Toyota's crushing defeat of Akira Hokuto. Big year for Joshi. I almost picked what is arguably the first singles match of real jaw-dropping quality between Misawa and Kenta Kobashi, but instead, again, I had to go for a match which is known by its date. That's how kind of famous it is. Yes, if you know, you know. It's June 9th, 1995, again in the Nippon Budokan. That's 3 in a row in the same venue, and it's maybe the defining match of the All Japan peak era. It's all 4 members of the 4 pillars taking on one another in an epic tag team clash. And it's the story of a ruthless, targeted attack on pre-existing injuries from Kawada and Taue against Misawa and Kobashi. They ruthlessly target Misawa's orbital bone and Kobashi's leg, which you'd think would make them the heels of this match. And Misawa and Kobashi are certainly the heroes of the match, but the crowd are very split. And after 40 minutes of tactical, spirited, very dangerous at times action, lots of twists and turns in between, I think this match's absolute masterstroke is the finish and the booking decision, the fact that Kawada and Taue actually get it done. It is unforgettable. 1996 had great matches all over the place. Rey Mysterio versus Juventud Guerrera, the rise of Jun Akiyama in All Japan, Wild Pegasus versus Black Tiger in New Japan, aka Chris Benoit versus Eddie Guerrero, Shawn Michaels versus Mankind over in the WWF, Muta versus Liger, Brett versus Austin, not that one, but the one at Survivor Series, and instead, I have gone for WCW. That's right, my choice for 96 is Rey Mysterio and Psychosis, bringing their rivalry to a bigger stage, at least in the English-speaking world, at Bash at the Beach. This could be one of the greatest pay-per-view opening matches of all time. There are crazy bumps taken both inside the ring and outside the ring, and very notably from inside to the outside of the ring as well, as Rey Mysterio, who I believe was only like 21 years of age at this point, pulls out all the stops to defeat Psychosis. It is just a small sample of what Rey Mysterio would go on to do in his career, but it's a marvelous one nevertheless. 97 is possibly the single hardest year to pick from so far. We've got singles magic between Kobashi and Misawa. We've got the New Japan Junior Division mayhem featuring the likes of Liger, Otani, El Samurai, Kanemoto. The spellbinding clash, of course, between Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio at Halloween Havoc. And perhaps most famously, the first ever Hell in a Cell match between Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, ending, of course, in the debut of Kane. But this is 97, and there's only one match I could go for, and it's arguably the greatest WrestleMania match of all time. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret Hart, the most perfect double turn I've ever seen. But the match isn't just about the double turn. It's got an iconic finish, of course. Ken Shamrock does a really good job as the special guest referee as well. But this match is also about the bruising, punishing action all the way through, and the gradual nature of the double turn as well. Now when you watch it back, knowing what's going to happen and knowing how Bret's going to turn heel, you can kind of see it coming. And I love the crowd reaction as well. I love the story of this one. It's entirely justified for Bret to feel so aggrieved. In his mind, he's never done anything wrong. Why are the crowd turning on him like this? Just because this new Austin guy is so popular and everything? Yes, that's exactly it. And sometimes the world's just against you. And Bret turns in such a defiant, nasty performance here. And Austin is Austin, such an ass kicker, but such an underrated, sympathetic seller as well. It's a classic. If you've never seen it, please watch it. I know I just said it about 97, but 1998 is a crazy year of quality. Again, possibly one of the best. There's a trio of All Japan matches I have to mention. Misawa versus Akiyama, the debut of the Emerald Flosion. Kobashi versus Akiyama, the destruction of Kobashi's leg, but then he wins anyway. And another Kobashi and Misawa epic, this time featuring that crazy Tiger Driver spot off the apron. What were you thinking, lads? And also Mankind versus The Undertaker, two of the most famous bumps in wrestling history. What more do I have to say? But unfortunately, it's another pathetic hipster pick from your boy. In fact, this is probably the most obscure pick of this entire video. It's Shinobu Kandori versus Yumiko Hotta, a crazy shoot-style match from Ladies Legend Pro Wrestling. This match is one of the best shoot-style matches I've ever seen. Knockouts or submissions only are the rules, and they play into the storyline as well, with both women at certain stages accidentally going for a pinfall, only to be reminded by the referee of the rules. And at first I thought, that's a bit of a botch. No, it's not. It's deliberate because it plays directly into the finish, with one competitor making a fatal mistake. It's also very difficult to watch at points, with Hotta busting herself open hard way, I believe, on a headbutt, and then just becoming transformed into this demon somehow, which Kandori must then overcome. You could put this on like any modern day GCW Bloodsport card and it would steal the show several times over and possibly get them banned from the venue in the process. 1999 then, we've got to mention Misawa versus Kawada, a crazy grueling match. Both men now broken down by this stage of the rivalry. It's the match which features that Gonzo bomb, and Kawada finally beats Misawa despite breaking his arm legitimately in the match and having to no-sell it throughout. I also want to mention a young Meiko Satomura getting her very first win over Aja Kong in a very nasty tag match indeed, and Jerry Lynn and Rob Van Dam, of course, tearing the house down in ECW. But I have actually gone for Misawa versus Kobashi, the third of their main epic trilogy in the late 90s. I love this match because I watched it without knowing the result, and I've seen Kobashi be heroic before, but I'd never seen him be quite this nasty before. And he's doing all the right things as he always does, but with this edge. And it finally feels like he's become merciless enough to defeat Misawa, and this is finally his moment. And then, in what I think is a bit of a genius piece of booking, although people may disagree if you're a particularly big fan of Kobashi. But he doesn't do it. He doesn't have enough. It isn't his moment. A heartbreaking one, a titanic clash between two epic rivals. And finally, I've chosen a Misawa Kobashi match because the other ones happened in years where I just preferred something else. I'm sorry. Into the new millennium we go, and the year 2000. Lots of famous matches here. The Triangle Ladder match at WrestleMania, of course, and TLC 1 at SummerSlam. Kawada's ultimate road win, I've called it, over Kensuke Sasaki, heading over from All Japan to New Japan to prove, hey, no, we're still a real promotion, you guys. One of the greatest lucha libre atmospheres of all time, Atlantis versus Villano 3, Mask versus Mask, and Triple H and Mick Foley's duo of matches. The first one, the Street Fight at the Royal Rumble, and then Hell in a Cell about a month later. I've chosen the former one there. I've gone for that street fight between Triple H and Mick Foley in his Cactus Jack gimmick. Much has been made these days of Mick Foley's ability to elevate younger wrestlers, to put them over by taking them to hell in a hardcore match. He's done it with Triple H, he's done it with Orton, he's done it with Edge, and this one is maybe my favourite of those three examples. It's really nice to go back and watch now, especially knowing what Triple H would become and becoming this maybe too dominant heel, as many have pointed out over the years. But here he is kind of running scared a little bit of Foley, who is the terrifying Frankenstein's monster that he has to try and beat. And beat him he does. The famous moments include a pedigree sending Foley face first into thumbtacks. Why would you agree to take that move? Mick, and also a little cameo from The Rock as well, who bursts out of the entranceway. Last time I watched this, I'd completely misremembered that. I didn't think The Rock was involved at all. And I gave a little jump of delight when he appeared. Oh, it's the Brahma Bull, guys. 2001 was a great year for the WWF in particular. Maybe not in terms of business, as 2001 was, of course, the end of the Attitude Era. Maybe not in terms of storytelling, because the invasion angle was a bit of a disaster. But in terms of match quality, there's a lot to enjoy. Chris Jericho versus Chris Benoit in a ladder match at the 2001 Royal Rumble. TLC 2 took place as well, of course. In general, WrestleMania X7 is regarded as the best, if not one of the best WrestleMania, no, the best WrestleMania of all time. What am I saying? And that's why I've opted for, you know it, Steve Austin versus The Rock in the main event. This is the moment that wrestling was never the same again. You can argue all you want about the finish. I understand if people don't like it. I think it worked in that moment. Austin turning heel, doing the unthinkable thing. Yes, it was terrible for business, but this video isn't about business. It's about what I enjoyed the most and what I found to be the greatest match of any given year. And I think that's this one. Austin and Rock have such electric chemistry, and this is probably, well, this is, I'd say, the best match by a mile of their WrestleMania trilogy. No disrespect to the other two matches, particularly the third one, which I really like as well. But Rock Austin 2 is in its own league. This is in Texas, so the crowd really want Austin to win, but he's been displaying these oddly heelish tendencies heading in, and then of course aligns with Vince at the end. And I think The Rock is such a great sympathetic babyface here, and I think Austin's assault on him with the steel chair at the end of the match is tonally perfect. Right, 2002, what's this new indie wrestling thing on the scene, you guys? CM Punk versus Chris Hero, great match. People like Christopher Daniels, Bryan Danielson and Loki having an awesome triple threat in Ring of Honor. Also some WWE stuff as well, most notably featuring the SmackDown 6 or some combination of those 6. But instead, I've gone for Genichiro Tenryu defending his title against Satoshi Kojima in Osaka, Japan. It's an All Japan match. Not the most fashionable time for All Japan at this point, but this bout was undeniable. After the exodus of many top names from All Japan to establish the promotion Noah, it's kind of hard not to look at this match as two of the top guys in All Japan proving, hey, no, this company's still got life, you know? And they do prove that without a shadow of a doubt. Also, Tenryu is like 52 at this point. I talked about Rey Mysterio only being 21 or so in that 1996 match against Psychosis, so I have to give credit for one of the best kind of quote-unquote old man performances I've ever seen. Not that 52's that old, but maybe in wrestling terms, certainly at this time. Not these days when they go on forever somehow. Lots of strikes in this one, lots of chops, lots of Kojima's trademark lariats, of course, as well, but also more surprising elements too, like Tenryu at one point doing a dive because he can. Not that he should have done though, but because he could. On to 2003. This year, of course, had Benoit versus Angle at the Royal Rumble. It had Angle and Lesnar's WrestleMania main event and their 1-hour Iron Man match on SmackDown as well, one of the greatest Iron Man matches ever, perhaps. We also had great Ring of Honor matches, Ring of Honor coming more and more to the forefront here, like AJ Styles versus Paul London, but I've gone back over to Japan again for Misawa versus Kobashi. This time not in All Japan, but in Pro Wrestling Noah. This is their last great singles match. It's also one of the hardest to watch. It's that spot off the ramp to the floor. If you've seen it, you'll know exactly what I mean. But the whole match is brutal. It's two titans by this stage, unable to break each other down and throwing absolute bombs in order to try and do so. It's scary. But despite that, sometimes things that are kind of hard to watch are also undeniable in their quality. And this is a massive example of that. I think for the longest time as well, it was also, for what this is worth, it was also the #1 rated match on Cage Match by Cage Match users, although I think it has since been eclipsed. But I think I may have picked that match later on, the one that eclipsed it, so I won't say anything for now. Yeah, Misawa Kobashi, it's the second time I've picked Misawa versus Kobashi in this video, but it's kind of a different match to that first one. It's like it's got a little bit less finesse maybe, but it makes up for that in terms of desperation and sheer punishment. If you like long indie matches, you'll love 2004. Chief among them, the trilogy between CM Punk and Samoa Joe, two of which went to an hour-long time limit draw. 2004 also featured, of course, the main event of WrestleMania, a very good one, the triple threat between Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and Chris Benoit. Many people's favorite triple threat match of all time, let alone WrestleMania main event. I would be remiss not to mention the TNA 6 Sides of Steel match between America's Most Wanted and Triple X. Likewise, Kenta Kobashi versus Jun Akiyama over in Noah. But I've gone for a New Japan match, actually. No image again, I'm sorry about that. New Japan is scary. And New Japan probably weren't on top at this point in time in terms of match quality, except for this one. It's Yuji Nagata versus Kensuke Sasaki at Wrestling World in the Tokyo Dome. It's only about 12 minutes long. I watched this match for the first time researching this video and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I've also never seen Yuji Nagata specifically in this way. Kensuke Sasaki in this match is Kensuke Sasaki. He's a bulldozer of a man. He always does that. It's very compelling. Nagata, I've never seen this side of him. I always saw Nagata as almost a bit of a reluctant hero of this era, kind of pushed to the main event scene by Inoki, but not entirely comfortable. Probably something to do with the fact that Inoki kept booking him in legit MMA matches against some of the greatest MMA fighters ever, like Cro Cop and Fedor. But in this one, Nagata gets nasty. Kensuke is a machine and a brutal wrestler, as he always is, but Nagata meets him head on. Both men are busted open within the first few minutes, and neither wants to back down. And it's a cliche, but this match is all about who wants it more. The finish of the match might be quite divisive, but I really loved it, and I think you have to watch the whole match. Again, it's only like 12 minutes. You have to watch the whole match to really appreciate the ending. Quite a long stretch of just one man being held in a submission and then the ref waves it off, which doesn't sound that compelling. But if you follow the story of the match all the way through, it makes total sense, and it's good. It's a grisly one though. Don't watch it if you're squeamish. 2005 might be the single hardest year to pick from in this entire video. I'll list some matches. Angle versus Michaels at WrestleMania. Samoa Joe versus Necro Butcher. Kenta Kobashi versus Kensuke Sasaki. Samoa Joe versus Kenta Kobashi in Ring of Honor. I almost went for Kenta, not Kenta Kobashi, just Kenta versus Loki. But instead, only just beating it is that famous match in TNA. I'm of course talking about the X Division triple threat match between Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles, and Samoa Joe. The criticisms I could see towards this match might be like how perfect it is. When you've got wrestlers like Joe, Daniels, and Styles all in the same match, there's going to be a level of technical excellence that you don't get in many other places. Some of the bumps, some of the dives, some of the sequences might seem almost like from an action movie. They might seem a little bit too clean for wrestling fans, but I think that they don't overdo it. I think there's still enough of a competitive streak running throughout this match. It never feels overly choreographed, in my opinion anyway, and I think it is truly ahead of its time. I think it's one of those matches that changed the business. I love the interplay between the three men's characters as well. Daniels is the heel, AJ's the crowd favourite, and Joe's, well, he's too big to be in an X Division match. Oh wait, he's agile as well? What's going on? I can see why it blew people's minds. It's really good. I don't think they sounded quite like my impression there when they expressed their delight, but you'll have seen it already. But if you haven't, it's a real treat. It's so much fun. And like I say, I don't think it overdoes it, but your mileage may vary. 2006, we have the feud between Kenta and Marufuji and Noah, worth a mention. We have the Ring of Honor Dragon Gate 6-man on WrestleMania weekend, Edge versus Foley at WrestleMania I've mentioned already, and a couple of wild brawls in the interpromotional war between Ring of Honor and CZW. But I've gone for a match in Liverpool in the UK, Bryan Danielson versus Nigel McGuinness. It's the ring post one. It's a silly match, but I wish that I wish that it wasn't just remembered for that spot. Actually, no, I don't think it is just remembered for that. I do think people remember it as a great match as well. A little bit earlier, I described one of my honourable mentions as Kawada achieving a big road win, a big away victory from home by heading to New Japan and pulling out a big victory there. This, though, I think might be the biggest road win in certainly the 21st century. Bryan Danielson heads to Liverpool and is horrible, and the crowd hate him, and they really want Nigel McGuinness to win because he is British. He's not from Liverpool, but close enough. And it's wrestled under pure rules. They only have, I think, 3 rope breaks to use each, and they exhaust each other's supply of rope breaks. First, Bryan does so, and the smug look on his face when he realises he's got Nigel in trouble. Nigel's comeback is absolutely heroic, being roared on by this venue. It's the Liverpool Olympia. I've been in there. We ran a WCPW show there once. And it's a chilly, chilly venue. But, oh, this is such a cliche, but these two guys really heated it up. I hate myself. And then it all comes down to the final 4 with no rope breaks left. And it's just a genius little ending as well. Watch it. The ring post spot is horrible. If you haven't seen it, it's Bryan yanking Nigel, who takes these shots to the head right into the ring post. It's not nice. It's not clever at all, but it's what he did. And it does, unfortunately, it makes the match quite memorable too. 2007 then, lots of honourable mentions. Cena versus Umaga, James Storm versus Chris Harris in a Texas death match in TNA, the Briscoes versus Steen and Generico, several matches to pick from their tag team feud in Ring of Honor. But I've gone for a different Ring of Honor match instead, and once again, it features Bryan Danielson. This time, he takes on the imposing Takeshi Morishima at Ring of Honor Manhattan Mayhem. And this is my favourite match of those guys' feud. They had quite a few different matches, but this one is the one that really stands out to me. But I like the feud on the whole because each match has a slightly different flavour. The flavour of this one is, I believe, Bryan literally getting his orbital bone injured by Morishima for real. I hesitate to say that this is a total carry job because Morishima performs his role very, very well indeed, but Danielson's on absolute fire here. I think at this point he was operating on a different level from anyone else in the world. And his legendary toughness was on display as well, suffering that injury early on to his eye and powering through anyway. Not that I condone that, but you have to at least applaud his resilience. 2008, I almost went for Ric Flair versus HBK, the retirement match at Mania 24, but I didn't. I almost also went for heel Hiroshi Tanahashi in All Japan, taking on Suwama, the ace of All Japan at that time. There's also the Hell in a Cell match between Edge and Undertaker. There's also the ladder match between Jericho and HBK, but I've gone for a Bryan Danielson match once again, actually. And once again, it's Bryan Danielson versus Nigel McGuinness at Ring of Honor's 6th anniversary show. Yeah, that's 3 Danielson matches in a row. Although back in the 90s, I picked not only 3 All Japan matches in a row, but 3 matches that all took place in the same venue, the Nippon Budokan. So maybe I just enjoy certain streaks in wrestling history is what I'm learning here. The story of this match is fascinating and very unique, and the dynamics are reversed from their match in Liverpool, with Danielson now the babyface, the honourable babyface, who has vowed not to target Nigel McGuinness's head given his track record of injuries. Nigel is this unscrupulous heel willing to do whatever it'll take to keep hold of the Ring of Honor title. And in the unique atmosphere of Ring of Honor, where honour is prized above everything else, the crowd hate him for it. Especially when, after Bryan keeps his word and doesn't target the head, Nigel uses his own head to headbutt Danielson. Genius heel move, genius storytelling, awful behaviour. What a nasty Nigel. But at the same time, a brilliant match because of that. 2009 saw Nakajima and Kenta's feud in Japan, very nice indeed. Danielson's unthinkable title win over Chris Hero in PWG because Danielson was about to go to WWE. He can't win the title. Yes, he can, apparently. And a bit of a personal favourite as well in CM Punk versus Jeff Hardy at SummerSlam. But because it's 2009, and this is maybe the least imaginative take in this whole video from myself, I've actually opted for a little-known match called Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania. I think by this point, and some of this narrative may have been driven by WWE themselves, but I think at this point, this may be the consensus pick for the greatest WrestleMania match of all time. I often fall more on the Bret Austin side of that argument, but I do think it's probably between these two matches. And just because I prefer Bret versus Austin does not mean that I don't understand what makes this match so magical. As much as the action and the drama and the spots and the swings and momentum and the fact that both men weren't necessarily young men in this match and still put on a killer performance, I love the storyline, the real-life storyline behind it. The fact that apparently Michaels and Taker were really annoyed at not being given the main event spot and decided to steal the show. and then did. There's famous moments galore in this match as well, none more so than Undertaker's catastrophic dive to the outside, which almost results in disaster, but thankfully he somehow is okay and can carry on. Not just carry on the match, but put on one of the best matches in Mania history. It's bizarre. It's fantastic. I don't know what more can you say about one of the most famous matches of all time. 2010, I need to mention my boys, the Motor City Machine Guns, and their feud with Beer Money over in TNA. I also want to mention the crazy fight without honor between Kevin Steen and El Generico in Ring of Honor, and the explosive closing stretch of Chris Hero versus Akira Tozawa in PWG. And also, before my pick, I want to mention just my personal favourite Royal Rumble, which I don't think gets nearly enough credit. It's never mentioned among the 2001 Royal Rumble, the 92 Royal Rumble, all those classics. The 2010 Royal Rumble deserves more love, and I'm going to make it my mission to have that regarded as one of the greatest Rumbles of all time. The 2010 Royal Rumble is a blast. But I have not put my money where my mouth is and chosen it as the greatest match of 2010. I've instead gone for, once again, Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, in the main event this time, of WrestleMania 26. I love this match, not as much as the action in the first one, of course, but I love the story of this match far more. I love the build up to it. I love Michaels desperate to get a rematch, failing to win the Rumble, costing Taker the belt in Elimination Chamber. That whole road to this WrestleMania match was booked to perfection. The match itself, yes, isn't quite as epic as the first one, but I think it's a more defeated effort from Shawn Michaels. He's defiant, he's brave, there's near falls, he almost wins at various points because his career is on the line. And the fact that he loses, and the way he loses in that closing stretch, I think, carries deliberate echoes from him retiring Ric Flair at 24. Not quite the same melodrama, not the I'm sorry I love you or anything, but it's got the final defiant slap to the face and Taker going, I'm ending your career now, mate, I'm sorry. Yes, really good. Not as good in a vacuum as 25, but 26 as a story, I think, is perfect. 2011 was kind of the year of El Generico, with fantastic clashes against the likes of Claudio Castagnoli and Kevin Steen. We also have Hiroshi Tanahashi delivering the goods in New Japan, as he would go on to do for several more years, with great title defenses against Hiroki Goto and Shinsuke Nakamura. But if you know anything about wrestling in 2011, and you know anything about my preferences, there was only ever going to be one match in 2011. Money in the Bank, CM Punk versus John Cena. Like Taker Michaels at Mania 25, I don't know what else there is more to say about this match. Although it's maybe more comparable to Taker Michaels at WrestleMania 26, because this is as much about the story as it is the action in the match itself. This crowd, this Chicago crowd getting behind CM Punk, it's one of the most one-sided crowds I've ever seen, and it's just brilliant. But in terms of a babyface versus babyface match, or a heel versus face match with the heel being cheered, if you count Punk as a heel here, which I certainly do not. This match meant so much more than just Punk versus Cena. It was like, at the time I remember, it was the match that fully got me back into wrestling. It was like the indies versus the Fed. It was the message boards versus the mainstream. That's quite catchy. Well done, me. And even though it all went downhill and the summer of Punk became an absolute booking disaster, and even though Punk's run in WWE ended in a very sour way a few years later on, you can never take this match away from him or from Cena. It's a wonderful performance. And even the ending with Del Rio's failed cash-in attempt and Punk leaving through the crowd, this like man of the people, might look a bit cliched looking back. I can guarantee you at the time, it was not. It felt fresh, it felt dynamic, it felt revolutionary in a way. On we go to 2012, when New Japan is really starting to hot up now with matches like Okada versus Naito, Okada versus Tanahashi. WWE still had Punk versus Bryan over the limit. And of course, if you're into this type of match, it had the end of an era match between Triple H and The Undertaker, which again, if you're into that style of booking and storytelling and match construction, it's kind of the ultimate match of its type. But this boiled down to me it was a really close call between two matches. The runner-up was a match in DDT between Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi, who would of course both go on to do great things in New Japan as well. But the winner for me was a New Japan match. Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Minoru Suzuki in, I'm going to say, the most sensible match of this video. This match is really one for the purists. It's got one pinfall attempt in the whole match, the one that ends up winning the bout. And it's a story of an absolute clash of styles. Hiroshi Tanahashi trying to embody everything about being the ace, being this hero who can do all the heroic things in a wrestling match. Minoru Suzuki going, I'm like a legitimate fighter and I'm going to beat you up, So Tanahashi plays Suzuki's game and works the leg mercilessly. Like, it's an unbelievable selling performance as well from Suzuki, and one of the most gradual selling performances done so well that I can ever remember seeing. And by the end of the match, Suzuki can barely stand. And it's just the story of two ideologies clashing and one winning out over the other in quite crushing fashion if you're a fan of the other side over the first one. Watch the match. Like I say, it's one for the purists. It's very sensible, but this is sick. Got a bit excited there, sorry. 2013, some honorable mentions: Punk versus Taker at Mania, Punk versus Lesnar at SummerSlam, more chapters in the Okada-Tanahashi rivalry as well. Katsuyori Shibata and Tomohiro Ishii's unbelievable sprint in the G1 Climax almost got it here for me, but instead, I've gone back to my boy from Chicago, guys. That is John Cena versus CM Punk on an episode of Raw, halfway down the road to WrestleMania. Now, this isn't just a random pick I've plucked from nowhere. I believe this to be one of the greatest Raw matches of all time, and I think Punk himself has cited it as his own favourite match of his career, over the Money in the Bank one. Not quite the case for me, but I still really like it. And whereas matches like the Money in the Bank match and matches like HBK Taker at WrestleMania 26 work in conjunction with the storyline behind it, I think this match works really well in spite of the booking. That's because the road to WrestleMania in 2013 was a very depressing time. It was entirely predictable what was going to happen. They were going to redo Cena versus Rock, and this match was Punk trying to work his way into that main event spot. And we all knew watching this match that there was no way Punk was going to win. They were never going to pull Cena out of that rematch. It was worth too much money. And that's where I think the genius of this match lies, because it makes you question that, and it makes you think, are they going to do this? Especially when Punk busts out, of all things on WWE TV, a pile driver to John Cena and gets so close to picking up that win. It's a predictable outcome, but the journey they take us on makes it so worthwhile. On we go to 2014, the year of The Shield versus the Wyatts, Ishii versus Ibushi, and any of like 3 different matches from... Just Google Day 7 of the G1 Climax from 2014 and look at the lineup. There's like 3 or 4 matches you could pick from that, and each one could realistically be in with a shout as the greatest match of the year. But my 2014 match of the year is actually Adrian Neville versus Sami Zayn from NXT R-Evolution. This is the story of Sami Zayn trying everything he can to desperately win the NXT Championship from Neville, the future Pac. And it's a question about, and this is so cheesy, it's a story of Sami's soul. That's because Sami gets tempted later in the match as the referee gets bumped, and the title belt itself is there for him to use as a weapon, and he picks it up and considers it and throws it away. And if you've ever watched wrestling, you're thinking, oh no, this means he's going to lose, he wasn't ruthless enough. And the genius little twist of this match is that it is enough, and the pure-hearted good guy actually wins for once, and it's a lovely moment. Credit to Sami for an unbelievable babyface performance in this match. Credit as well to Neville for... it's not like a heel performance, but it's like a ruthless, competitive, I am the favourite of this match performance from the defending champion. And it's worth mentioning, I don't know if it really counts as part of the match itself, but the aftermath's brilliant too, with Sami's old friend from the Indies, if we believe Sami Zayn is El Generico, I don't know, but Sami's old friend from the Indies, Kevin Steen, coming down to congratulate him and powerbombing him into the apron. Really, really good. 2015, a crazy year this one, mainly in Japan, with Tanahashi bringing Okada back down to earth in the crushing main event of Wrestle Kingdom. We also have Okada bouncing back in the summer to win the title from AJ Styles. In WWE, 2015 began with the insanely fun triple threat between Lesnar, Cena and Rollins, while the year was closed in spectacular fashion over in Stardom between Io Shirai and Meiko Satomura. But it's another women's match I've given the crown to here instead, from NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, the glass ceiling smashing, revolution ushering in of thing match between Sasha Banks and Bayley. This match's wrestling boiled down to its purest form. Bayley, at the time, was one of the most sympathetic babyfaces I can ever remember watching, and Sasha Banks was a cruel, nasty, vindictive heel. Put them both together, build them both up, make Sasha the champion, make Bayley the challenger, and this is what you get. But while the dynamic of this match is very simple, the action is not, and this would be kind of our first clue as to the incredible chemistry that Sasha and Bayley share. You could argue that both encountered many, many obstacles when they both made it to the main roster, but here in NXT, the spotlight was almost entirely on them, and they flourished. The reason I say almost is because this wasn't actually the main event of TakeOver Brooklyn, but it should have been. There is no question in my mind that this is one of the most key moments in the quote-unquote women's revolution in WWE, which I find it strange that WWE kind of brag about that, because in doing so, they're acknowledging that they didn't take women's wrestling very seriously for so long. But people argue about, was it Charlotte, was it Natalya, was it Paige, was it Becky? For me, I think one of the, was it AJ Lee? Can't forget her, of course. But in my mind, when I think of the women's revolution, this is the match that first springs to mind. It might be appropriate to call 2016 the year of Okada, with his revenge victory over Tanahashi topping arguably the greatest Wrestle Kingdom card of all time. He also had a loss to Ishii, which lit up the G1 climax, and his bout with Naomichi Marufuji, an outsider coming into the promotion, which proved to be an incredible clash of styles. Elsewhere, we had more Io Shirai brilliance against Kairi Hojo, Kairi Sane, and Mayu Iwatani versus Io as well. The sensational debut of Shinsuke Nakamura and his match against Sami Zayn in NXT. We had Cedric Alexander and Kota Ibushi destroying each other in the Cruiserweight Classic, one of the most unlikely matches of all time. I still can't quite believe it happened. And a spectacular Lucha Underground bout between the men otherwise known these days as Swerve Strickland and AR Fox. But I instead have gone for the Revival versus DIY at NXT TakeOver Toronto. I know. 3 NXT matches in a row at this time when New Japan were so dominant and putting on so many matches of amazing quality. Do not worry, New Japan will be back in this list very, very soon. I love the Revival versus DIY because it's old school tag team wrestling. It's like the match I mentioned ages ago, the Fantastics and the Midnights, updated with modern moves, modern pacing, and with a modern crowd's sensibilities in mind. It's also 2 out of 3 falls, which gives the guys extra space to work out a really compelling story. It doesn't outstay its welcome, but it's certainly long enough and developed enough to tell a wonderful story. FTR, or the Revival, are wonderful heels as well. Gargano and Ciampa are wonderful baby faces before they turned on each other, and it all got very evil indeed. And this is one of those matches where I can put it on and know that I'm in for a very fun time. It's dramatic, it's epic, but it's also a total blast. It works on multiple levels. 2017, of course, is dominated by the epic trilogy between Kazuchika Okada and Kenny Omega, but there's also other matches worth mentioning. Omega's G1 Climax run against the likes of Naito and Ishii, over in WWE, Styles versus Cena at the Royal Rumble, of course, Tyler Bate versus Pete Dunne in NXT, a match where the whole world kind of sat up and went, oh, this is the sort of talent coming out of the UK scene? But this all comes down to, I think, the single hardest choice I've had to make in this video, because both of these matches are 2 of my favourite matches of all time. The runner-up, I can't believe I'm saying this, is Okada versus Shibata. And I love Shibata, and I'm so annoyed that I've had to say that, but I couldn't overlook Okada versus Omega 1 at Wrestle Kingdom. But watch both. Watch the Shibata match as well at Sakura Genesis, please. Okada Omega 1 is my favourite of the trilogy of 2017, but together the matches all tell a wonderful story, of course. But that first one was kind of, I think, similar to that Kobashi Mizawa match I mentioned from the late 90s, where you really think it's someone's moment, and then right towards the end it becomes apparent, oh no, the champion has way more in the locker than we thought. Not to say that Okada dominates Omega in any way. It's an enthralling back and forth contest, with Omega getting the jaw-dropping moments, the big swan dive to the outside, the double stomp on the table, taking that backdrop all the way through a table on the outside as well. I've made it sound like a hardcore match there, it's really not. But Omega gets all the big flashy moments, and Okada avoids the one-winged angel, perseveres, hangs in there, has his own little flashes of momentum here and there as well, and then takes things into the next gear in an incredible closing stretch. This match has like 3 false closing stretches that rise and fall, and you think each one's the legitimate finish, and then the final one is, I'm getting breathless just thinking about it. They must have been tired after that one. Get the kettle on for these lads. In 2018, New Japan's incredible run would continue with Hiroshi Tanahashi's unbelievable resurgence and unlikely G1 Climax final victory over Kota Ibushi. We also had Takahashi versus Taiji Ishimori in the Best of the Super Juniors final, and then over in NXT we had an unbelievable year with several potential matches of the year coming in just one night at NXT TakeOver New Orleans. Also earlier on in the year for NXT we had Gargano versus Andrade, we had Gargano versus Ciampa in New Orleans, that unsanctioned main event. Great matches all over the place. Great matches everywhere. It's 2018. There could only be one for me. I'm talking, of course, about the fourth and final match of this big feud between Okada and Omega. 2 out of 3 falls at Dominion in Osaka, an hour plus. At this point, Okada and Omega's rivalry was already kind of cemented in legend, but this is the match that I think made people start to say, actually, this isn't just one of the greatest feuds of all time. This is in the conversation as the greatest feud of all time. Obviously, it's not as easy to determine as that, and there's so many feuds all throughout wrestling history, but this is the one that forever put it in the very top tier. But you might not always be in the mood to watch this match. You have to be really ready to know that you're going to put in like an hour plus amount of time watching this story develop. But it really rewards the patience if you are in such a mood, because it's epic. It's slow building. There's storylines all going on at play. The One-Winged Angel is treated as such a lethal maneuver that Okada must avoid at all costs. But likewise, Omega has already lost to Okada twice in such high-pressure situations. And Omega's never won the title. Can he get it done? I'm not going to spoil it. You have to watch it yourself. Oh, my voice just went. I'm nearly done. On we march to 2019. Tanahashi sending Kenny Omega packing from New Japan at Wrestle Kingdom. Also, the Ultimate David versus Goliath clash in Cardiff between Tyler Bate and Walter. Will Ospreay starting to really dominate the star ratings over in New Japan. And the feud in NXT between Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano. And yet, excitingly, I'm going to pick the first match that I was there for live in 2019. Don't worry, it's a worthy pick as well for the greatest match of 2019. It's the Battle of the Rhodes Brothers at AEW Double or Nothing in the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas. Cody versus Dustin is the jewel in the crown that was AEW's first ever show. A personal story, one with a lot of bitterness behind it as well, not just between the brothers, but Cody smashing the throne of Triple H during his entrance, which has since been mocked. But there was a lot of anger and defiance in this match because WWE never gave them this match on a big stage. That's a lot of pressure, that's a lot of hype to live up to. Both men really bet on themselves here and said, we are going to put on a match worthy of a big pay-per-view, but on our own terms this time. And my God, was it, yes, it fully paid off. That's not a sentence. This match is bloody, it's personal, there's crowd-popping signature moments from both men. Cody's doing quite classic heel stuff, like using Brandy as a distraction or waiting until the ref's back. Then Dustin makes his comeback. He's whipping Cody literally in the backside, the naughty younger brother. It's so funny in that moment, but so brutal elsewhere as well. There's a whole range of emotions going into this match. It's also one of those matches where, from what I can remember, I enjoyed it a huge amount live, but that doesn't take away from watching it back. You know, sometimes when you've seen a great wrestling match live in whatever promotion, any indie or anything, and then you watch it back, and it's not quite the same. That's not the case here, and the magic of this match, I think, still absolutely lives on. Now, the year 2020 obviously was a terrible one. Lockdown disrupted a lot of wrestling as well around this time, although there was a very unique match in Ilya Dragunov versus Walter, which really made the most of the silence of an empty arena with those echoing chops and strikes. That almost was my pick here, but not quite. I've picked a match that certainly benefited from happening early on enough in the year to have a full crowd. And also, I think one of the best tag team matches of the modern era, Hangman Page and Kenny Omega versus the Young Bucks at AEW Revolution. I'm quite surprised to find myself putting a Young Bucks match on here, because even though I can't deny that they're an incredibly skilled tag team, I wouldn't ever count them as one of my favourite tag teams of all time. Whereas FTR certainly are one of my favourite tag teams of all time and seem very philosophically different to the Young Bucks in their style. This match is proof that the Young Bucks aren't just moves and crowd-popping spots. They really can tell a story. But the beating heart of this match, of course, even though all four men play their part, the beating heart is Hangman Adam Page, who is the outcast. He's going against his three friends who two of them don't seem to respect him very much. Kenny Omega's caught in the middle between them, and the teasers of dissension, although quite a cliche throughout tag team wrestling over the decades, really work to perfection here. I also remember being totally shocked by the outcome. I thought for certain the Young Bucks were going to beat Hangman here. He and Omega were going to come to blows. Either Omega was going to turn on him completely or just accidentally cost him the match, or the other way round. No. I think the thing that really pushes this match over the top for me is that Hangman overcomes everything, and so does Kenny Omega as well, because it's an awkward position for him too in the storyline, and they do it. And then the aftermath, through just body language and ring positioning, they tease, I think, 2 or 3 different potential heel turns, and none of them happen. It's a masterclass in playing off the crowd's expectations. 2021 saw Shingo versus Ospreay, Shingo versus Tanahashi, Shingo versus Jeff Cobb, a lot of Shingo Takagi, in a Shingo versus Ishii, Shingo versus Zack Sabre Jr., I could go on. We also had epic clashes in Stardom between Syuri and Utami Hayashishita. We had Hangman Page finishing his story, kind of, beating Kenny Omega to become AEW World Champion. Dragunov Volta 2, Sasha versus Bianca in the main event of WrestleMania Night 1. Eddie Kingston versus CM Punk. Quite a short match, but a furious sprint, one with real personal feeling behind it as well. Lots to choose from there. But instead, I've gone for another Bryan Danielson match, taking on Kenny Omega in Arthur Ashe. Oh my word, half an hour time limit draw on free television, I believe. What's going on? Yeah, so basically this match is 2 of the greatest wrestlers in the world going at it hell for leather for half an hour. And it's a breeze. It's one of the quickest half-hour matches I've ever seen. It's a genuine delight to watch from start to finish. It's a great heel versus babyface dynamic. And you don't want it to end, even though it's been going on for half an hour. I think even the finish, although it's deliberately frustrating with the crowd wanting more time, I think the finish is played off really well, with both men still scrapping, people having to run in to break them apart as the bell rings to signify that time has run out. Also, it's worth mentioning that when I was picking Danielson matches earlier on, that was like 15 years before this one. How did they do it? Yeah, the audacity of these men knows no bounds. Really good face-heel dynamic. I think even if you're not a fan of Kenny Omega's particular brand of wrestling, I think he reins in some of his worst impulses here. Worst from the point of view of people who don't like Kenny Omega. I don't mind when he's a bit theatrical or anything like that, but it's a bit more gritty, this one. A bit more realistic, and it's just 2 absolute greats. 2022 was the year of Okada versus Ospreay in New Japan and Syuri's highly acclaimed title reign over in Stardom. In the West, we had CM Punk and MJF's very raw, very bloody feud. We had Gunther versus Sheamus delivering a certified banger in Wales. We had Cody Rhodes deciding to have a Hell in a Cell match despite being in no condition to do so either. But I've gone for one of the matches in the feud between FTR and the Briscoes. I think most people would possibly pick the third of those matches, the double dog collar match, but I'm actually going for the first match of the trilogy at Supercard of Honor. I think this is a very self-conscious match. And what I mean by that is it's aware of its own hype heading in. There's a moment early on where Dax jumps down and starts high-fiving a few fans before a move's even taken place. Just kind of saying, yeah, this is awesome, look at this like dream tag team match. And I remember watching it live thinking, oh no, this is going to, well, not, I wasn't there live, but watching it at the time thinking, this isn't going to live up to this hype. It surpassed it. I don't really know how they did it, but this match devolves from, it's very wisely put together. It devolves from a legitimate, if spirited, kind of sporting contest into just a messy brawl, deliberately messy in a good way. I think it was Jim Cornette. Someone described the guys towards the end of this match as looking dirty, like they'd been fighting in the mud and the grime somehow, because they're just trying that hard to win. It's an amazing contest. I'm so glad it turned into a series of matches, but this remains my favourite of the 3. 2023 was a hell of an in-ring year for AEW, giving us a technical masterclass between Bryan Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr., an exercise in brutality, really, between Swerve Strickland and Hangman Page, and an almost hour-long tag team epic between FTR and the Bang Bang Gang. Guns up. So, of course, instead I'm going for a WWE match. The match that my friend Ross Tweddle termed the Call the Police match because of Titus O'Neil's call on commentary. It's Sheamus versus Gunther versus Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania for the IC title. Yeah, I still don't know what to think. I think this might be one of the greatest modern WrestleMania matches of all time. And it's just an IC title match in the middle of the card. But of course, it's not just that, is it? It's everything. It's big blows being thrown. It's guys screwing each other over, stopping other people from winning the match. It's huge chops from Gunther. It's action spilling everywhere. It's a real sense of desperation from Sheamus as well, wanting to win this IC title that has eluded him his entire career and not being able to do so at one point because of his best pal, Drew McIntyre. Everything's there. All the components are there for an unbelievable story. And you've got a dominant champion in Gunther. Yeah, all the ingredients are there. And it's... Have I already described... You know how I said the Tanahashi-Suzuki match was the most sensible one on this list? Maybe this one's the most fun one. There's a lot of fun ones, but this might be the most fun. I feel like I said that about another one though earlier on. I can't remember. On to 2024. Several of 2024's most beloved matches seem to be absolutely charged with emotion, from Sting's triumphant retirement alongside Darby against the Young Bucks, to Cody Rhodes finishing his story at WrestleMania, to Bryan Danielson winning big against Swerve Strickland inside Wembley Stadium. I'm opting for a different Bryan Danielson match though. Yes, it's Bryan Danielson again, versus Will Ospreay at AEW Dynasty. First time Ospreay's cropped up on my list here. Wouldn't you believe? Who? It's a surprise because I think Ospreay's great. This match is great. It's two such different wrestlers. I'm not doubting the greatness of either man, of course, but it's two such different wrestlers in terms of style, managing to work towards sort of a compromise and have an unbelievable match which highlights both men equally. I don't know if it's quite a torch-passing match. It might be in hindsight, given that Danielson seems to have quietly retired from active competition. But whatever it is, it doesn't make Danielson look weak. It just makes Ospreay look even more on form for being to overcome the Dragon. This sort of match could easily have not lived up to the hype. It could have easily strayed too far and featured too many kickouts, both men just looking like absolute Terminators, and they both look strong to a degree, but it never breaks my immersion in the contest. I think it's a wonderfully balanced match, and I think this is high praise. It's a match that is worthy of both men's back catalogues, even though those back catalogues are absolutely chock full of fantastic bouts. 2025 isn't over yet. So I am going to wait a bit, and then at the end of the year, I'm planning, hopefully, take a lot of research, but I want to do it. I'm hoping to do my top 50 matches of 2025. And hopefully everybody will enjoy that. But I hope you've enjoyed this video as well. Once again, leave any glaring omissions from me in that comment section down below, and thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack the Jobber. A huge shout out to everybody over at my Patreon for basically allowing this channel to exist. Thank you so much. If you've enjoyed the video, like, share and subscribe and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, thank you once again. I've been Jack the Jobber, and I'll see you very soon.